Okay, we might be a little laggy per usual, but that's fine. How you doing, everybody? It's your boy Wardy, and we're back at it with the latest post-game segment. Unfortunately, not an exciting one when talking about Mets baseball, but certainly an exciting one with the special guest that we have today. We have not only diehard Guardians fan, but the face of baseball YouTube to the minds of many, including myself. None other than Fuzzy has joined me, as together we're going to break down my misery, talk about his excitement for Cleveland over this past stretch of games, and really throughout the entire season thus far, comparing and contrasting these teams, how the Mets looked and how they faltered 7-6 and lost yet another series. Again, where the Mets had offense today, which was a great sight. What wasn't a great sight was seeing how they lost this game thanks to a man that, again, should not be in this rotation, yet somehow stuck another start in there, and Adrian Hauser. We're going to get into it all. We're going to break down the numbers and everything in between. But everyone first chiming in live on replay, make sure to smash that like and subscribe button. Let us know your biggest takeaways as always. Mr. Fuzzy, my man, thank you so much for taking the time, regardless of the loss for the Mets and how pissed off I'm about that. We'll get to it. Greatly appreciate this. This has been long overdue.
My first ever baseball jersey that was Grady Sizemore, and just the way that he played really got me hooked. And ever since then, I've just been a diehard Guardians fan. People still want me to say Indians fan. It's just a name, bro. So I'm going to say Guardians for the stream. But I was an Indians fan back in the day, became a Guardians fan. I think it's the exact same thing to me. So yeah, just the only team I've really fell in love with and been passionate about, whether it's football, basketball. You know, I was a Carmelo fan because my dad's from Colorado. I was a Broncos fan, but the Guardians have always been my number one team. So when you guys took Lindor from us, I always said the Mets will rue this day, and they shall rue it over these last 48 hours.
you guys have had your revenge the past couple days at bare minimum, and we're seeing some Lindor emojis in the chat from my members too. Come on, Mets, get it together. Welcome to the show, Fuzzy. All right, Fuzzy. So outside of your fandom, let people know again where they can find you and again what you built here on YouTube.
Yeah, thank you, man. So it's just Fuzzy on. I think if you just YouTube search Fuzzy, you should be able to find me. I do daily baseball recaps. They're a beast to make, so I definitely would appreciate any support. I think we're 900 subscribers away from 500,000. So
crazy.
If you guys want to come join the team, I'd really appreciate it. But yeah, we make daily baseball content. We recap every game every day. I've not missed one this year. I'm very tired, but it's worth it.
Awesome. Thank you, Fuzzy. Appreciate that. I've been watching his recaps plenty, seriously, because, again, the beauty about it is that if you, say, miss a good slate of games or whatever, and you're like, oh, my goodness, Bobby Witt Jr. just did what with a 470-foot bomb, but he didn't get a chance to catch it? Because for me, AL coverage especially is not something I go out of my way for.
Yeah.
That's his key performances or my bandwagon Baltimore Orioles. So outside of that, there really isn't much there. So I go to you especially for a lot of AL coverage, like the highlights of the day and everything, and your breakdowns are always fantastic. And
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Of course. And we do got a donation in the chat. Let's see here. Yoshima with the $5 holla says,
hey, Yoshima.
Yeah, you know Yoshima? He's an
yeah, he's a goat.
Yes, he is. A long-time follower of mine. On my computer screen right now, pinch me, I must be dreaming. Also, Mets can't catch a freaking break. No, they cannot. And, I won't dilly-dally. Let's not waste too much time in this. We're already getting people asking, Fuzzy, can you give me a shout-out in the chat?
Says, is it cool if I give a few?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, shout these
Certified random. I guess it's just him. Spamming it 5 times.
Shout out to Daniel, Steven, Yoshima as well, PB, all my great members for chiming in live on a replay. Happy to have you all on here. And now let's get into this on the ball game. So first and foremost, Fuzzy, what was your expectations heading into this series? Seeing Lindor's homecoming, and kind of wrap around from a Cleveland fan standpoint, what Lindor meant to you and versus how he's looking now in Queens. Like, is there anything that you're noticing as a significant difference with the way he's carrying himself, just how he plays ball? Like, I really want to know, again, from a Cleveland fan perspective, what are your emotions like with someone like Lindor and everything that's transpired over these past couple of years?
Yeah, so I got in my opinion, the best version of Lindor. I thought that he was sick last year, the 30-30 season. We had the Lindor that was playing the platinum defense. He was hitting 40 doubles. I think at one point he set a record for the most amount of extra base hits and stolen bases by a shortstop through age 24, 25. So he was just a monster for us. And I know he didn't like to be called Frankie. We didn't know that up until he got traded. So that comment kind of hurt. Him calling us lazy, the fact that he openly said that he slept and took a nap during the rain delay of the World Series as opposed to getting the troops rallied. So that really stung. There's a lot of things that kind of made the fan base feel like, did you not even like us? Why are you happy to be gone? So that's why when he first came up in the first at bat, there was a good amount of cheers, but I thought it was like 70% cheers, 30% booze,
Right.
just because a lot of people felt slighted. But I have no issues with Francisco Lindor. He was one of my favorite players to watch. The defense, the smile. How could you not love Francisco Lindor? So I'm happy that we got Anderson Menes out of it. Ahmed Rosario could not get away fast enough. I don't know how you guys ever dealt with that. So,
Well, you're
um,
already done with Andres Jimenez? Is that what you just said to me?
no, Ahmed Rosario.
Oh, Ahmad Rosario. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
Rosie. Yeah, Rosie. To this point, I mean, the Rays are getting the best out of him, obviously,
Mhm.
but he is again Mister. I am going to swing at everything. I'm going
Oh,
to play
yeah.
subpar defense, but I'm versatile. I can play in various positions for you if you need me to. Just don't do it well, and I'm going to hit for a high contact and give you north of 15 to 20 bombs a season.
Yeah. Now, the one thing I have noticed about Lindor is he's not using the bottom half as much as I remember, because now that he's on the East Coast, I don't watch every single Lindor at bat. So the one thing I will say about today's game before we get into it, that line drive base hit to the left side to the third base and shortstop gap, that's a Lindor swing that I think you guys can be encouraged for, because he's been marred in that slump. But that's how Frankie hates that. That's how Lindor is. He sucks for the first month or two, and then as soon as June hits, he breaks out. So you guys got like 2 more weeks of him grounding to double plays and popping up and hitting it straight to people. But I think that Lindor is going to break out here soon. So that's my takeaway, honestly, because this game was kind of all over the place, to be honest with you. I don't know if I have a true takeaway, because it was a weird game.
It was a very weird game, and I appreciate those takes on Lindor because there's a couple things. One, he's actually become, you could argue, even more of a low ball hitter. That's the big thing we've noticed. Especially fastballs up, Lindor can struggle mightily with, depending on the side. Like, for the first number of weeks this season, he did not know how to hit from the left side whatsoever. Right
Yep.
side against lefties, great, but, righties just could not read them whatsoever. Really slow start there, which led in hand with the frustration because, unfortunately, this Mets team has a great job on rallying around each other when things are going right, but when things aren't going right, instead of it being just that one or two guy, it's the vast majority of the core group, and that's why we have a lot of these glaring leaks where we're winning or losing games by 2 or 1 run, and we're dropping a lot of them because we're just getting a lack of production from the guys that consistently need to be providing the proper offense for us.
Yeah, it's stressful playing you guys, because you look on paper at that lineup, it's ridiculous how much length you guys have.
Right.
And I knew every single time that we got a lead, it was not going to be an easy lead. And bringing in a guy like Sam Hedges or bringing in Scott Barlow, you're going to face a Mark Vientos who, has struggled, but he's an extra base machine and he's going to break out. So even if it's not Brett Batty, it's going to be Vientos. If it's not Pete Alonso, it's McNeil going lefty off a guy who throws 97 from the left side. So I genuinely don't understand some of the managerial decisions and roster moves on the pitching side of things, but also it just seems like there seems to be a little cloud over the Mets franchise in general, because no matter how I look at if you're looking at my team versus your team roster wise, I mean, let's be real. We don't have Gavin Williams. We don't have Shane Bieber. This shouldn't be a fair fight, but there just seems to be a camaraderie around the Guardians that I don't know if the Mets, I'm speaking from an outsider. I saw a club that seems, if things are going bad, they're going to stay bad. They might pop off for a 2-run home run and, kind of get jazzed up a little bit. But watching Starling Marte play defense, the fact that he gets picked off on that single yesterday when JD's at second, he's in no man's land. It's just, I don't know if it's a Mendoza thing. I'm genuinely watching a Mets team that should be really good, and I'm shocked that we're now undefeated against them.
Yeah.
And it might just be simple as you guys got to get Kodai back. You guys got to get, people in the right places on the pitching side of things, and Edwin back to being Edwin. But I feel like you guys should be way better than 6 games under 500.
Yeah. And I feel like we should be too. And there's been 2 main problems this season. The one has been the lack of consistency with their offense. The Mets scored 16 runs in their final 2 games against Miami, but one of the biggest issues there is that they beat up on a Braxton Garrett, who's just not good.
Yeah.
And then Sixto Sanchez, who we didn't even know was alive until this past January. So, that in itself is a big problem. Then we see yesterday, again, nothing against Lively, but this is, again, a guy that we don't know too well, and he, of course, had success against us today. I was hoping to see Cookie Carrasco, again, former friend of mine, again, a friend of yours once again, and he unfortunately gets put on the IL right before today's start. So the Mets get thrown a plethora of different pitchers on a short-term basis. And when it comes to the Mets and bullpen games, it goes one or two ways. It goes, one, they have no clue how to hit whatsoever. Or two, they do hit pretty well, and they got the offense today. The offense was not the problem as a whole today. It came down to an Adrian Hauser who, because he was warming up in the bullpen just in this past series against Philly, that made the Mets decide to keep him then on the roster, send our younger right-hander in Jose Buto down, who pitched 6 scoreless innings today. No walks, 7 strikeouts in AAA. He should be up, but we're
Wait, why is Jose... Why is Budo not on the big league squad?
It's stupidity. It's just because the
Not
alignment...
injury?
No. It's just because the alignment with the pitching that the Mets had, because they're trying to still do a 6-man, and Hauser, they've been trying to utilize out of the pen. The problem is he's not good anywhere you put him. He had like 2 really strong innings early on today, and then the third was peak Adrian Hauser. Just cannot get out of his own way. And this is not a slight on Cleveland either, but again, when you look at the lineups on paper, there's a lot of guys, and this is what Cleveland fans know very well, Tampa Bay Rays fans, Oakland A's fans, when of course you guys are at your best, you guys turn a lot of these quote-unquote nobodies into somebodies, right? That is something that you built your roster on. There is a reason why you have a fraction of the Mets salary, yet you're still over 10 games above 500, where the Mets are squandering, we have fans already saying, blow it up. The season's already done. It doesn't matter. So between the lack of consistent offense this past month, where the Mets have, again, lost the majority of their games in doing so, pair that with the rotation that struggles mightily to go deep without Kodai Senga. We're lucky to get 6 innings from our starters even consistently nowadays. And along with, again, the Mets walk everyone their mother. They lead all baseball in walks currently. And stolen bases, just absolutely putrid. Like, we have no proper pickoff moves there at first. Francisco Alvarez, since he's been down with injury, the Mets are now 10-22. They've only won 1 series. So to suggest that a young catcher doesn't have a significant impact on your team is silly, because he has not only been a great defender, great framer, he has tremendous pop-up time, a cannon of an arm, but he's also a 25 to 35 home run bat when healthy. So you're missing all these aspects by not having Alvarez, also by not having Senga, and then the poor hitting approach that comes with our current hitting coaches and Eric Chavez and Jeremy Barnes. Just, we have 2 co-hitting coaches, yet can't even, hit the Mendoza line for this team consistently. They tried. Like, there's just major issues with, I think, some of the inherited coaching staff that is not Carlos Mendoza's picks nor David Stern's. And I think we will see some drastic changes, if need be, throughout the course of the season for a team still pushing for playoffs.
Okay. What about a Fujinami? Would he be an add to the rotation? Would he be a long reliever kind of guy? Because I feel like Diekman and Shintaro were the 2 big ads for the bullpen, and it just seems like every time I see a Diekman, he's giving up a random 2-run home run to a David Fry, and I think Fujinami's getting lit up in AAA. So it just seems like the pieces that were supposed to be the bridge pieces to maybe catapult into I hope it doesn't happen, but a Pete Alonso trade, rebuilding towards the future, and Brett Beatty breaks out. It just seems like the plan that was in place got completely cut at the knees as soon as Alvarez went down.
Yeah, no, I agree. And 2 things. Fujinami, I love him. He got absolutely cooked in AAA. He's got all the stuff, but he can't command to save his life still. And now he's on the IL with a shoulder injury. So he's not going to be back anytime soon. We hope that sometime, more so in the second half of the season, he could potentially be a weapon for us out of the pen. Because if there's one thing that David Stearns has made his early mark on that us Mets fans cannot deny, is how consistent he has made this bullpen, the aggressiveness with the pitching staff as well. Like, the pitching has carried the Mets far and away so far this season. We have gone this guy by the name of Reed Garrett, which has just blown us all away with a sub-1 ERA, a disgusting splitty. They took away the heater, got a nasty sweeper too. He has been striking out everyone their mother right now.
I didn't even get to see him this series yet.
Exactly, and hopefully you will tomorrow. And he's been lights out. Edwin Diaz, it's a confidence thing. It's a I haven't pitched in over a year thing. I'm rusty, my slider's flat, or I can't locate my fastball to go hand in hand. And when you're a 2-pitch pitcher and you don't got things going right, of course you're going to have a problem there. So yeah, Fujinami, Diekman. I'm not a huge Jake Diekman fan. Our boy Mark, Giraffe Neck Mark is, but it doesn't change the fact that
it's just an MLB The Show thing.
He averages 5 to 6 walks per 9 every single season. He touches 97, 98 on the gun, but if he can't locate, he's screwed. And Diekman, who gave up, of course, the game-winning bomb for you guys that we saw in this one, the frustrating thing is that our number one lefty option in our bullpen, coincidentally enough, just got shut down for the season in Brooks Raley. You remember him during his time in Tampa, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, he's been really crafty, very good lefty for us, and now he's out for the year. He's getting season-ending surgery that they tried to push off for this past month. It didn't work, so now we're reliant on a Jake Diekman to potentially be our number one lefty option in the pen until someone like David Pearson, who returns. He's been out over a year with injury or so. He will return on May 27th from the injured list, which is the earliest Kodai Senga can too, who lightly threw today. Senga will have a bullpen this Friday. He's behind on schedule, but he will return sometime in June or at absolute latest July. But hopefully sometime or the next month and a half, we will see Kodai Senga definitely back in this rotation. And we do have some comments here I'm going to address quickly before we break down a bit more about the game and what worked so well for you guys and what didn't for the Mets here. I see a comment from Billy. Thank you so much for your $2 donation. He says, how much more can we take? Yeah, us Mets fans, we went through hell and back, you know, and Fuzzy knows it very well. It's not like Cleveland has had this long, storied success, you know what I mean? So he can relate on a level certainly with us there. And we got Greg with the donation, $5 holla says, I know there are good pitchers and bad pitchers, but the Mets seem to have a large standard deviation of hitting. Yeah, you know, you're right. And again, they have a continued problem, which I think stems from their hitting approach as a whole. Again, it was great to see them get offense today. Hopefully that continues, but bear in mind the context of the offense sometimes too, is what I've been telling Mets fans. The Mets have not beat up on one good starter yet this season. And I'm not even exaggerating when I say that.
Put some respect on Ben Lively.
Okay. I mean, but beat up. Like, literally, again, we gave up one run. Yes, that's my point. True. We only had one run. So any guy that is solid, or let alone is in that echelon of Cy Young worthy, we're cooked. Like Jared Jones for the Pirates went 5 shutty on us and like just over 50 pitches. And the only reason why we won that ball game is because Pittsburgh had him on an innings limit, and Aroldis Chapman is Aroldis Chapman. Like that, there's logical explanations for why we have had the production we've had and why we haven't. And it's a glaring problem when you can't handle, again, competent starting pitching the way this Mets team certainly can't. Scott in the chat with the $5 donation says, can we just play videos of the disgruntled Indians fans from Major League 2 and an IG Mets jersey on him and put a Mets jersey on him that grab your throat and choke thing? We should. That would have been fitting for this show. Absolutely.
I didn't even know. Did he say Major League 2? I didn't even know there was a second one.
Even how do you not know that? That's alarming.
I didn't know.
You got to catch up. I mean, Grant, you've been busy this past decade grinding this whole YouTube thing, so I'll give you the excuse there. But okay, let's talk about what stood out in this ball game, and it begins there that we see in the third. Final little plug, shout out to the amazing sponsors as always at Sora MLB and BetUS. Click the links down below to check them out if you haven't already. We'll get to them a little bit later here in the show, but the offense again kicked off that we saw there in the third inning between these two teams, and this was Adrian Hauser being Adrian Hauser after looking fantastic with the fastball and getting 4 strikeouts throughout his first couple innings. He deals with the problem here in the third, and it starts with the Bo Naylor hit by pitch that we see. Then he gives up a double to, I'm gonna butcher his last name, Brian Rocchio, thank you, with his 9th double of the season, and that makes it a 1-0 lead. At this point, I was driving back home from grabbing dinner, and I had Cleveland's radio call in, and I was just smacking my thigh for like the ensuing 5 minutes because I just kept hearing 1-0, 2-0, 3-0. I was getting pissed. Tyler Freeman then with his 8th double of the season, that makes it 2-0. And then after Andres Gimenez ground out, J Ram with a double makes it 3-0. Unfortunately, there was an error there by Starling Marte. No other offense happens in that inning, but Cleveland again jumps to a 3-0 lead. And the Mets would try to have some offense of their own that we would see in the 4th inning. They rip a double by Pete Alonso's 11th of the season. We see Brandon Nimmo with the single. Then unfortunately, a JD Martinez fly out to center field. A great play there by Tyler Freeman, and Pete Alonso should have tagged up and would have scored comfortably even if that ball dropped. I think every day of the week, Pete Alonso probably gets to home there.
Tyler Freeman has a hose piece, bro.
Okay, does he like when we're talking from that standpoint, are you confident that he's out right away? Is that what you're telling me?
1,000%. Like the red dots on Savant don't lie.
Okay, all right, then I'll believe you because I'd be lying if I said I was
That's
a
the
Tyler
scouting report. They definitely said Tyler Freeman has an absolute hose piece because he was probably 30 feet from second. So I think he gets thrown out.
Okay, that's fair. Alonso's also a terrible base runner, so that's something to
Right.
keep in mind. Like he's above average, I would say speed for his size and frame, but he dives headfirst way too much, which is like a big no-no. One and two, he just looks like scared out there sometimes.
Yeah,
Like
he's
he doesn't.
clunky too.
Yeah, he's very everything about Alonso's funky. Everything about his game, even if he rips 50 nukes, he does it in a funky way that only like Mets fans appreciate, and every other team's like, "F this guy, he's weird." That's the vibe that a lot of people think about
I
him.
think Pete is cool, but even when I see him in the commercials where he's like ordering pancakes or whatever, I'm like, I don't like that.
It's like it just there's something that just feels so uncomfortable about it. And as
Yes.
someone who met Alonso last year at Jeff McNeil, he had a charity golf event. It was really cool to chop it up with him for a short time. Pete, was definitely like in person was like cool. Like it was nice to have the conversation, but it gave off that same vibe where there's not a wall, but there's something there. There's just something a little bit in the way that has Pete being his own unique way that I don't think anyone can truly relate to. And that's okay. But I still love me some Pete Alonso. And Zach Flakerton in the chat with a $2 donation says Vientos should be playing every single day. We're going to talk about Vientos. I'm going to want to know your thoughts on him, Fuzzy. Obviously, you saw him have a big game today against your Guardians. And before we got there, let's hop now let's get to the fifth inning because that's where a lot of action happened. And it started with the Vientos home run, his second of the season, the first of which was a walk-off bomb pinch hitting against Lobaton there against the Cardinals over the past couple weeks. Vientos would be sent down not long after, but then he most recently came back after the Mets just have continued to squander just any type of competence with their offense. Jeff McNeil rips his 9th double of the season somehow, and then we see Tomas Nido with a single, and Francisco Lindor, what you highlighted earlier with an opposite field RBI single, makes it a one-run ball game for them. And again, Pete Alonso with a walk, and then we see Brandon Nimmo and JD Martinez strike out back-to-back the end the inning. The Mets had bases loaded with one out there, could not convert. It stays a 3-2 ball game. And that JDM swing, JDM was just horrendous today. I love JD Martinez to death, but seriously, he was brutal to watch between the half swing strikeout there to end the inning with bases loaded, and then he also swung after what was he grinded out at bat, his last at bat of the day, like a slider, like so far out of the zone. It was just peak JDM. He's going to swing at everything. And when he makes contact, he's good, but when he doesn't, it's a problem. And that was a problem today for the Mets, unfortunately. And then as we got to the bottom of the fifth, you guys got the offense right back because for whatever reason, we thought it would be a smart idea there to have Mr. Adrian Hauser stay in this ball game. In the fifth, again, he gives up a walk to Freeman, and then we see the 2-run shot to Jose Ramirez. Again, it might have been up high, shoulder high, but it's
First base was open, by the way.
Exactly. It was J-Ram, the best third baseman in Major League Baseball, not named Austin Riley. The one guy that I could confidently say in this Cleveland lineup will turn on a pitch like that with ease. And that's exactly what Jose did. So that's where I was losing my shit because I'm like, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see this from a mile away. I know the Mets don't want to tax the bullpen when Hauser had a good pitch count today. But when you're not good, you're not good. It's like you got to make ends meet somehow. And that's why Hauser should not have started this game to begin with. But nowadays, when you send a guy like Buto down, they have to be in the minor leagues for a minimum of 10 days, unless there's an injured list transaction to bring them back up. So even if we wanted Buto up today, we couldn't have him, which is, again, piss poor managing, in my opinion. That's why we kind of shot ourselves in the foot there. So it's a tie ball game, not tied ball game, I should say. It's 5-2 Cleveland through 5. And in the 6th, the offense won't stop there because we would see with 2 outs, Mark Vientos, his 3rd double of the year there, gets it in the gap. And then Jeff McNeil with an expected batting average home run of 150. So yes, McNeil had no right to hit this ball where he hit it. He somehow rips his 2nd home run of the season and make it a 1-run ball game. And that's why the Adrian Hauser outing hurts so much more. To make matters worse, you know what? Mendy's like, let's just throw Hauser out there to start the 6th. Not like we're at great risk of having a leadoff walk or single happen. Will Brennan with a leadoff single. Then we bring in Jake Diekman. Jake Diekman, if he doesn't walk guys or strike out guys, he gives up home runs. And he did that to David Fry, his 5th of the season, which made it a 7-4 ball game. And then as we get to the 8th inning, of course, Starling Marte tried to rally the Mets back here with a 2-run shot of his own after a hit by pitch by DJ Stewart. And the Mets could not get any more offense from there. They had some work going going on with Emmanuel Clase pitching for a third straight day, but to no avail. So they lose this one where they again out hit the Guardians for a second straight day. This time 11-7. The Guardians had 4 hits yesterday to the Mets 6, but this is where key base running and defense, and certainly having competent pitching, will be the difference here. The Mets had offense today, so I'm not going to gripe too much there outside of the bases loaded 1-out situation, but this all, in my opinion, falls on a mix of Adrian Hauser and a lack of competency when you need to hit most. So for you, from a Cleveland fan standpoint, what is your biggest takeaway to see Cleveland take the first 2 out of 3 here against the Mets?
I just think the biggest difference between your team and my team is we're very much a know your role and excel at that role.
Right.
Nick Sandlin, I mean, the stat was he's now retired he's stranded 19 of 21 runners that he's inherited. So when Nick Sandlin walks to Pete Alonso, I'm not stressing at all because he excels in that situation where he has to strand inherited runners. He gets Nemo, he gets JD Martinez looking stupid. At that point, I knew that there was going to be runs scored after that, but the setup for Cleveland has been if Nick Stanley comes in and he gets the inherited runners out, we are going to win. Somehow, some way, that's the vibe of this team where I feel like if I'm a Mets fan, it almost reminds me of when Joe Girardi was the manager of the Phillies. No matter what the team did, no matter how it happened, something bad happened every single time. And then they fired him, brought
because
him the new guy.
because we beat up on them that year.
I don't know if it's a vibes thing. People think that vibes are overrated. I think they're underrated. If your clubhouse is going through it, as soon as David Fry hit that home run, I know that Starling Marte hit that home run to bring it within 1 or something like that, but it's just we had an answer for every single thing that you guys did because our guys know their roles. They're not trying to lift up the team all by themselves. They know that it's a plug-and-play sort of situation. When Carrasco goes down and we have a Curry come up, you probably didn't even know who Xavier Curry is.
Not an effing clue. No.
That's what I'm saying. So it's one of those – I know that Adrian Hauser is starting for you guys, and he should probably be in the pen, but he is serviceable. He is better than Curry. And we don't have a Gavin Williams. We don't have a Shane Bieber. So the fact that we're approaching 20 games over 500, again, I'm just trying to find an excuse for you guys. And it seems like the excuse is people are underperforming. And maybe that's the best excuse because that means that projecting forward, Babbitt's going to go your way. The relievers are going to get healthier and healthier. Maybe Hauser goes to the bullpen. Maybe Batty gets sent down and Mark Vientos stays at third baseman. That opens up the roster spot for Bodo to come back. So it just seems like the plug and play is not happening for the Mets, but I feel like you guys are kind of close. I feel like the season's not completely out of it, whereas the moves that we're making, they're working every single time. And I don't know if that's a Stephen Vogt thing. Stephen Vogt is an absolute gem of a hire.
I wasn't envious of the hire when it happened because I don't feel Vogt is a guy that makes sense for a big market club right away as a first-time manager.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
But for you guys, he made all the sense in the world. Like, there's no better guy for Tito to patch the torch to, in my opinion, because you have a guy that just retired who had been in the league as a big league catcher for the past decade plus, 10 to 15 years, whatever it was. He just has all that major league experience and was just dealing with not only heavy analytics at times, but was working with, again, smaller organizations, being a part of the Oakland A's, understanding what that culture is like. Like, those things go a long way. Not that Cleveland and the A's are the exact same thing because they're far from it, but they still have the same basic philosophy of having a small payroll and getting the absolute best out of what your options are there, with the money you can spend. And those internal options, player development, everything in between. I would argue that the big difference between these two teams is the Guardians have had a front office and a structure in place where, again, you know your role.
That's it. Yeah.
And it's been like this for years upon years. We're going on decades of exactly, what to expect when you're going into Cleveland. For the Mets, you have a Steve Cohen who has went now through 3 different guys at the helm of the front office and multiple managers, a plethora of different coaching staff and players. You can't expect to find consistency overnight when you haven't had it as an organization. And that's why over time with David Stearns and Carlos Mendoza, I'm confident that we will absolutely get there. But that's why this year was all about being, again, a pushing for playoffs year with the talent we have on the team. Because just paper alone, if these guys just hit their weight, perform the way that they're supposed to, this Mets team should be looming in the 80-win range. It's now the matter of, will they be more buyers and sellers at the deadline, or will they be more sellers and buyers, which will dictate them probably cracking that third wildcard spot or not. So, yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head, too. Just when you have a certain philosophy in place, you know your role every single time, is not something that you can simply try to change overnight, no matter how much you try. We saw Steve Cohen aggressively tried to do this in recent years by spending dollars on short-term free agent options. And while it had a sliver of success, it showed how unsustainable it can be, especially if you don't have everyone kind of on the same page. There's a lack of unity there, I would say, throughout the course of a 162. So between the culture and everything in between, you're right there. But before I discuss a little bit about Mark Vientos and your thoughts on him here further, another thing too is Carlos Mendoza. I don't know exactly how much you're aware of him during his time, obviously, with the Yanks. Mendy was just the longtime bench boss for Aaron Boone. He was the one that always was managing when Boone was thrown out of games, 20 times a year. Like, he literally has over 20 games of managerial experience because of Boone, either because of health issues or because of getting ejected from games. So he has a sliver of that in New York. And Mendoza, what bothered me today was how he utilized Adrian Hauser. I don't think Adrian Hauser should have been out there, especially after what we saw in the 5th inning. I think that should have been it, yet we still let him face that first batter.
I was shocked to see him out there.
Exactly. Why is it that everybody but the guy that's actually in control of the situation is like surprised? It doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't. But Mendoza, while he has been inconsistent this year, like any other first-time manager, you're gonna have trials and tribulations. I expected that. I don't want him gone by any stretch, because Mendoza is a fantastic player first manager. One, he commands the clubhouse really well. He shows an enthusiasm and an interest, a way that we saw very little of from a guy like a Buck Showalter or even a Louis Rojas. Everyone's favorite said absolutely nobody, Mickey Callaway, that a thing or two about. Like, these, I know, yeah, we got to throw him in there when we can, especially for Cleveland Mets. I mean, it's kind of fitting, is it not?
That guy's weird.
Very weird, freak. But Carlos Mendoza, again, far from the biggest problem here. He just has to face, the reality of being a manager for a New York team that has a fan base that wants success right away, in a year where we're not going to get that right away. We're going to go through a lot of ups and downs. And again, as Ron Darling says best on the SNY broadcast, every year you're going to win 60 games and you're going to lose 60 games. What do you do with that final 40 or so? What can you do to be that big difference maker, right? That is what's going to be very important for the Mets. You're currently set, 20, what are we now? 21 and 27?
27.
Oh, my God, just ridiculous. Like, we started 0-5. Then we had a 12-3 run. Everyone forgot about the 0-5 start. We're like, I don't know how we're here, but we're happy to be here. And I told every Mets fan, enjoy the ride while it lasts, because we have no clue how long or short it's going to be. Holy shit, did I wish I enjoyed that ride longer, because it's been a month plus now of just absolutely putrid, mediocre, inconsistent baseball. And talking a bit about a guy that has been a bright spot, unlike a good portion of this team at times, Mark Vientos. What was your first impression of him, again, as someone who I'm sure probably hasn't watched him too much throughout his young career to this point?
No, I watched him last year because I know he had a Future Stars card in MLB The Show, so I pick up on these guys. And I remember hearing about him again after he got sent down because JD was signed, so Mark Vientos was sent back down. He was liking posts about the Mets getting beat or something. Yeah, I can't remember exactly what happened.
And then my tweet blew up on that, and I've since deleted it because I didn't personally have a problem with it, but I could understand if it came off that way, and I kind of wasn't burning a bridge. Not that there's a relationship there at the moment, but I'm like, I apologize. Yeah, Vientos went out of his way. He liked, and then I think he unliked a post on just emphasizing.
But it wasn't just him. It was Ronald's brother as well.
Yes,
Luis Angel.
I think Luis Angel didn't have a effing clue what he liked. I think he just saw what Mark liked on Instagram and liked it too, if I'm just putting two and two together. But yeah, that stirred drama for like a hot 5 seconds. And then since Vientos has been called up this season, he's been an absolute machine. Like, so in a nutshell, go ahead.
Yeah. The broadcast, my broadcast was asking, they were posing the question on whether or not Brett should be sent down in favor of Vientos. And it blows my mind that Brett Baty's AAA stats are mythical. They are some of the best AAA stats you can possibly have. And then when he gets called up, because you can't call him a 4A player yet. He's 23, 24. Right. He has had spurts of being really good. The defense, despite the fact that it's not, David Wright, he has gotten better this year and made some strides. So you want to anchor down, which is what we've done with Brian Rocchio at shortstop. He's been awful offensively, but you got to give him his reps. Tyler Freeman had a big stretch of not performing the best, but he's playing a brand new position. Will Brennan, same thing. All of these young guys that were awful last year for us are not as bad this year. So maybe that's the approach, that the Mets are more focused on what they have invested as opposed to the results on the field. perfect example. Brendan Rodgers in Colorado, he should not be starting over some of the guys in their farm system. But because
Right.
you have so much invested in a Brett Batty, in a Brendan Rodgers, you're going to give him the reps over a guy like Mark Vientos, despite the fact that Mark Vientos is or has been a top 100 prospect. I like Mark Vientos' exit velocities. I don't like his overall game more than Brett Batty. So I too would put myself in the situation where I give him the leash. But I think you have to find that perfect balance. And I'm glad I'm not a GM because that would drive me insane. I would lose sleep over, do I start Vientos? Do I DH him? What happens when Alvarez comes back and Brett Baty's hot and now Vientos has no spot? I would not want to have that sort of equation to fix and solve. So my biggest question for you is, who's the face of the Mets? I have no idea who the leader of the clubhouse is. Who do you look towards when you're down 5 and we're going to rally the troops? I don't know if it's Lindor. Pete is playing like not Pete, in my opinion, for a guy who's about to be a free agent. Yeah, he's got a good amount of doubles and extra base hits, but it just seems like it's not a rudderless ship per se. But as soon as I saw that Mark Vientos like thing that you posted, I thought it's going to be a weird season for the Mets. And sure enough, it's been really weird. It's been a roller coaster, up and down, no trending in the right direction. It seems like after that 12-3, and it just seems like this seems more in line of what they were probably projecting. And the 12-3 was them overachieving, which doesn't make any sense because their lineup on paper is one of the best in baseball.
Right.
So I'm very confused as an opposing opponent because, again, I was uneasy every time that we went up because I thought, oh no, we're facing the Mets. The Mets are really good, but also they're the Mets. So I don't know how to feel about them. They're almost like the Angels of the NL for me, where you put all of your eggs in a basket and you say, I'm going for the Mets or I'm going for the Angels, and they let you down. So I'm sorry, chat, if that sounds a bit mean, but I'm a Guardians fan. We get let down every single year, so I know how it feels.
Yeah, you're literally used to misery like us. There isn't a lot of differences between the two.
Right. But I think the difference is me as a Guardians fan watching you guys, I don't see the plan in place, whereas I see the plan and the wheels in motion as to what's coming after this, what's the future. And the future just seems to be, is Pete Alonso coming back? We don't know. Is Kodai going to be okay? I don't know. It just seems like there's so many big question marks as opposed to, is Brian Rocchio going to figure it out? I don't know. He's Brian Rocchio. Maybe we'll replace him with someone else.
Right.
It's not a big face of the franchise just yet. So all of the auxiliary pieces are adding up to a good team, whereas your big pieces don't seem to be adding up to much right now.
Yeah. No, you nailed it with a lot of that. And to answer the two main things, I'll start with briefly on Vientos to share my sentiment on him. You know, the big issue with Mark Vientos throughout his young professional career has been the lack of defense. He's profiled best as a DH. And the problem is, especially when you're a young player where you're trying to find your value for the Mets' sake, not only on the roster, but potentially trade value should they wish to go down that route, you want to continue to give him consistent reps defensively, whether it's in AAA or where have you. So with Batty, again, kind of being the man to be given the keys at third base to start the season, Vientos started in AAA because we signed JD Martinez late. And even though that JDM, again, didn't start with the Mets until like a month into the season or so, we had this guy, DJ Stewart, who used to be with the Baltimore Orioles, who's now went on to be our little Kyle Schwarber. He is fantastic.
I like him.
He has one of the best, I call him Teddy Bear because he looks like one. He has one of the best eyes at the plate we've seen outside of Membo. Absolutely fantastic, and he's been able to go gap to gap and hit bombs when we need him to, especially the lefty-righty matchup has favored him plenty. So DJ Stewart, who had a bad start to the season, he gets reps, he's looking good. Then we see, again, Vientos gets some sliver of playing time and took full advantage. I mean, Mark Vientos already, I'll throw out this stat for you right here. This is a good example and kind of the difference between a Vientos and a Batty, if you will. You know, with the home run and double tonight, and this comes from Steve Gelbs of SNY, Vientos now has 5 extra base hits in just 8 games this season. In comparison, Batty has 6 and 43. Batty has struggled so heavily to lift, drive, and pull the baseball at the major league level. That has been far and away his biggest bugaboo. Last year, he couldn't perform offensively or defensively competently, and he had a lot of mental hurdles he was open about and spoke with The Athletic on heading into the offseason. So the offseason helped him a lot, but what we noticed with Batty is the defense now is above average. Like, defense is far from our big concern with Batty now at third base. It's so much better than what it was a year ago, and that's from working with a guy like Francisco Lindor plenty pregame, you know, and in parts of the offseason. That's a difference. But Batty's lack of ability to consistently handle major league pitching at this point is why Vientos has now been called up, and both of them are in this platoon role that David Stearns was initially trying to avoid until it couldn't anymore, because Vientos' bat is now propelling him to the point where we will likely see him in the lineup more often than not, with Batty going through these struggles, and they're doing the lefty-righty matchups right now, obviously. I have concern for that from a player development standpoint for two young, inconsistent players, because you don't want them to be prone to thinking, oh, I can only face lefty pitching or I can only face righty. But with the Mets team that's in desperate need of just having consistency with their offense, that's why Vientos is here. And with a game like today, I will not be surprised if he's back starting yet again tomorrow here against you guys. Do you know who your starter is tomorrow, by the way?
I have no idea.
Clue? All right, I'll tell you right now, because we got a 110 game. All right, we got Mr. McKenzie on the bump versus Jose Quintana.
Oh, Tristan.
So congratulations on the series sweep. I would just like to start there. But Tristan, again, we know how much of a stud he's been. 3.2 ERA so far, 9 starts. Jose Quintana, 5.
He's got a 1.9 ERA over his last 4 or 5.
Oh,
he's pitching with a torn UCL.
We are literally cooked. We are absolutely cooked. I promise you. We will not do much tomorrow until Tristan is out of the game. And we have to hope that it's not like an Aaron Nola situation a week ago where Nola did a complete game shutout against us. It was brutal. This is what I mean. Like, this shit is not okay. We've had so many...
Josh Bell's not on the Guardians anymore, so you guys should be all right.
Exactly. My point. You hit the nail on the head there, Fuzzy.
I'm sorry.
But Vientos, again, we're going to see more playing time from him, and David Stearns has key decisions to make, because Batty may need a stint in AAA really to get himself right, to get his game going more. But I think the big thing is we've started to give him now pregame work at second base and shortstop, because we don't have a backup infielder with Joey Wendell being cut. Joey Wendell is horrendous. Literally, so you get me started.
Your tweets, I knew that.
For a utility guy, he single-handedly lost us games. Like, it was jaw-dropping. How do you have 2 errors in, like, the first game of the season, bud? We literally have you in for just a couple innings. You don't have to do much. We're not asking for a lot. But Batty, who's worked on his defense a lot, is now getting these reps, and really it's kind of coming down to the battle of mid. Jeff McNeil, Brett Batty have both been very underwhelming with their bats so far this season. But if Batty can start to carry his weight and can play competent defense at second base, that could be a situation where if McNeil goes through significant ruts, not like he did today, because McNeil had a very productive day, but Jeff has not been the Jeff of 2022, and I don't think he's ever going to get back to that with the way that this game is, again, moving farther and farther away for the Mets especially. The small ball is just not the thing we do. It's not what we had in 2022 was awesome, but it made a lot of fans think that we could get farther than what we did with that core group. We can't. I really don't think that we will be able to. And that's where Jeff, again, is this guy where we have a lot of questions about his future, even leading up to the trade deadline. But the big question you asked was, who's the leader of this team, right? And while we don't have an official captain, I will say there's one person on this team that has been level-headed more than anyone else, has went about his game every single day as a utmost professional, and has avoided ruts to the drastic degree of a Lindor and Alonso. That's Mr. Brandon Nimmo. Brandon Nimmo is not only the seasoned vet on the team, not only a guy in a long-term contract over the past year plus, but he is just the ultimate professional. Like, there's no one that I trust more to help command a clubhouse, but keep everyone in check with just his play alone. Like, he literally sprints to first base after every walk because of how much it means to him by beating the pitcher. Like, every single time that he can have that advantage, he wants to make sure the pitcher knows. So that's why he, again, does what he does, always has a smile on his face, and he's now a leadoff option for us that can push for 25 plus home runs this season and drive. He's leading the Mets in driving in runs too. So, like, Nimmo is definitely the guy, whereas Lindor has fluctuated with how he's handled fans in the past. Things have been much better really since his first year, and a lot of fans, including myself, love him. But Brandon will never go through the ruts that Lindor goes through. Even if it's really bad, bad ball luck, whatever it may be, Lindor goes through some brutal stretches early on in the season. And Alonso has been inconsistent with his contact hitting for a year plus now. The power's been there, but since, the shift changed after 2022, where you don't have these drastic gaps either down the third baseline or, between first and second, guys have just not been going out of their way to try to go opposite field as much. And that's hurt the game of both someone like, to a degree, and McNeil especially, and Alonso going opposite field. So Pete's been swinging the bat fine lately. We want to see more home runs there, but we know that'll happen. So to answer your question, Brandon Nimmo, I would definitely say, is the true leader and the face of this team. Maybe not market value wise, like marketing wise, but he absolutely is for what the Mets are right now.
Okay. I see some people in the chat saying that they're giving up on the season already. Is that an actual thing? Dude. Is that an actual thing where you like this was the game where I'm not going to tune into every single game because what's the point? Are we at that point of the season already?
If we're above 500 right now, and if we didn't fall off this past month, we have double viewership in the chat. So yes,
Oh,
yeah,
really?
Mets fans are so easy to get out of it. Like I
Is
tell
that just
you,
because there's so many things to do in New York aside from sports that if your team sucks, you can do other things in
well,
life?
other teams, even though most New York teams have had very little success for a long period of time right now, but I always tell my viewers, I'm like, you guys gotta be sickos to be watching me. How do I have 1,000 concurrent viewers ranting after we had 0 runs today? Like it makes no sense. But one, I try to
Right.
relate with fans on a certain level that I know many appreciate. But two, you just have a lot of fans too that again get checked out quick, especially when the expectations heading into the season were never World Series label, right? They were, again, pushing for playoffs when they made a lot of underwhelming moves to the average fan that doesn't know who Jorge Lopez is, who didn't bother to watch my video. And that's shame on them for that. But the same applies to other pickups. Luis Severino, everyone thought he would be the worst starter in baseball. Now, Sevy,
He's been solid.
he's arguably been our best starter there outside of our young right-hander and Christian Scott. So like that's really where it goes in hand. We are so emotionally invested with this team year by year that you will see fans absolutely be tapped out. They're like, I'm not going to watch for the next week or two. I'm not going to watch in the month of May. But once we get on to June or July and they start to turn things on with the weather getting better, then they'll be back. So yeah, as we always say, as I say, you know what? This team makes me want to drink. I hate them so much. Oh wait, I'm sorry. What time do they play tomorrow? That's literally Mets fandom in a nutshell. For WardyNYM, this is a therapy fan location. Exactly. People come here for therapy, vent sessions.
Okay.
We have had therapy sponsors on the channel because I literally had my first ever anxiety attack freaking out after Mets won their one playoff game against the Padres. Like, this is different for us, like this is not one of those things where it's like, okay, no, this isn't like, of course you have your fans that are like, I can not be emotionally invested whatsoever, but a good portion of people that watch here every day are almost too emotionally invested where they're like,
Okay.
again, they're getting the lengths of I need to call in and just rant and vent about this team. Even when they've been playing like ass for a week, they're still going to be here because we have OGs. But I do have a couple comments I'm going to address quick. We'll get into a quick ad read, and then Fuzzy, we'll get into the final remarks because I got some key questions for you before I get you out of here. And again,
Yeah.
thank you so much for the time. Everybody, if you haven't already, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. We're greatly appreciate it. Help my man Fuzzy get to 500,000 subscribers. That's insane.
Thank you.
He's less than a K away. And again, guys, literally, if you like daily MLB recaps, this is stuff that you can either be watching whenever. Personally, I'm an iPad kid in the sense that every time I eat, I need to watch YouTube. So that's right away where I'm thinking Fuzzy or whatever. But maybe you're one of those guys that likes to hear the recap as you're on your drive. You can do that too. Like, same reason why a lot of people like what I do is while we have a lot of things going visually, you don't need to watch it to understand what happened with the game and why we're breaking it down. So very easy content to consume. Make sure to check it out if you haven't already. He does great stuff over there every single day. Pet Mets with a $20 donation says,
$20.
I believe it is now time to make this Stearns team. Okay, to believe McNeil, Alonso Marte are going to change this team overnight is difficult to believe. Also, Chavez may become the scapegoat if things don't change quick. I agree. Now, while the offense wasn't the problem today, so I'm not going to yell at Eric Chavez more than I already have this season, but I do think we're going to get to the point where a hitting coach will be parted with should we not get consistency the way we're looking for. And to your bigger point there, Pet Mets, I agree regarding the core. Yes, I do not foresee a world where the Mets get where they want to be at all this year, even with the potential nice playoff run, unless they really make some changes. And it starts with, and it's going to be crazy to say after he hit a home run and add a double today, but Jeff McNeil is just one of these guys that I firmly believe the Mets will be better off without. And the only reason why they have him here is because Billy Epler went out of his way to sign him to a 5-year extension when he was already past 30 for a contact bat that's coming off of a career year. Like again, there's a reason why Billy Epler, in hindsight, hasn't been viewed as the best front office pick to many. Like,
was he the guy that let Wheeler and Lugo go?
No. So we let Lugo go because we couldn't commit to Lugo to have a starting role when we were bringing in Justin Verlander and all the other options we had then. And Lugo wanted to be a starter again. But the problem was his past 2 years as a reliever for us was very Jekyll and Hyde. He wasn't nearly as consistent as he used to be, and Lugo just wanted a chance to be a starter again. So we gave him that by letting him go. Goes to San Diego, he's a dog. Kansas City, one of the best starters in baseball right now. Love Lugo, wishing him the best, but it wouldn't have happened in Queens. Zach Wheeler was this schmuck by the name of Roy Van Wagenen, an agent
That guy
turned GM that the previous owners in the Wilpons decided to hire, because that's also Robinson Cano's agent. So that's what made the trade so easy with Edwin Diaz and Jared Kelenic, So a lot of, connections going on there. And Yoshima with the $5 donation says, trying to be positive here. And thank you again, Pep Mets, for the $20. Really does mean a lot, my man. Yoshima says, hopefully hitting against the best bullpen in baseball today is a sign of the bats breaking out. I may be coping. We got to find whatever we can get at this point.
No, we have seriously. The best bullpen in baseball. So putting up 4 runs on, a Hedges is his name. Barlow, I think you got a couple runs off. That was the 2-run home run. So yeah, I mean, there are some solids to take away from this game. That's why I'm glad that we won, but it almost felt like a game that we shouldn't have won. It felt like if it would have gone another inning, I think we lose.
That's how
that's the best way to put it.
Have felt with every win for the past month, because it has been salvaging series. We have lost what feels like every series since we lost Francisco Alvarez, but we salvaged the last game. And a lot of times when we salvaged the last game, it has been in a heroic fashion, like a walk-off fashion or something very crazy. So even then, we can't enjoy it too much because we're like, awesome. But that's how much effort it took just to salvage the effing series against this team. Like, how do you drop 2 or 3 against the Marlins? It's the Marlins. They're so mentally checked out, but because they're playing so loose, I guess that was the difference, because the Mets are a little tensed up right now, knowing that they're not playing good baseball. We got Gary Joyner with the $1 holla. Thank you so much. Benjamin with the whopping $50 donation. Ben says,
50?
You forgot to mention that you even draw in non-Mets fans like me. Benjamin is a Braves fan. This is what I mean. We have
diehard. You got Braves fans in here?
Yeah, all the time.
Psychos.
I'm their go-to. I'm their go-to for either, a great enjoyment the majority of the season when the Mets don't do well and I'm ranting my ass off, or again, misery, few and far in between, when the Mets actually beat up on the Braves and we can have a good, healthy rivalry going. I don't know where you stand with that, Fuzzy, but rivalries are one of my favorite aspects of sports. They make everything.
I love,
and without that, I feel like you don't have a true game of baseball.
No, facts. I am a big Guardians fan, and what the Royals are doing is actually a lot of fun. Hold on 1 second,
Fuzzy. Your audio cut out on my end. Give me 1 second. I'm going to try to fix it. You did nothing wrong. It's just an issue I have sometimes with my headphones. In the meantime, though, continue to talk with the chat, because I'm sure they'll enjoy the conversation.
Oh, actually, right now, I am currently looking up BABIP. I'm fully nerding out. I am looking at batting average on balls in play to see where the Mets are in terms of their BABIP with runners and scoring position. What's their batting average with runners in scoring position? That's the one thing. Who is the guy they go to? The Mets have a...
All right, Fuzzy.
The Mets are 17.
So we're going to go to option B, if it's okay with you.
It's my stream now.
All it means...
You can't hear me. No, this is my stream.
Do you hear me? You hear me, right?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. I'm going to call you on your phone if that's okay. And I'm going to finish the show like that. I've had to do this before. I don't love to. It just, for whatever reason, and I have a Elgato, Wave XLR. For whatever reason, if I'm doing a show for an extended period of time and collab cam what we're doing, sometimes it just likes to cut the audio completely from me. And the only way to get it back is if I end the stream. And I'm not going to do that yet. So I'm going to give you a quick call. We won't be long-winded here, and then we'll get on to wrapping things up.
Cool.
Okay.
All right.
Perfect. So, yep, you can hear me through the mic still and everything. Fine?
Yeah, I'm going to mute you.
Okay, perfect. All right, bet.
Oh, wait,
apologies if you guys hear any echo through my mic. I'll even hold my phone up to me if I need to. But I do see another donation here from Yoshima. Sickness may be finally subsiding too. Well, that's good to hear, Yoshima. I'm very happy about that. Thank you so much again for the donation, brother. Awesome supporter. Benjamin, once more, thank you so much for the $50 holla. That really does mean a lot. Thank you, my man. Consistency, are you not paying attention? They are consistent at losing. Yes, we know, Mike. The Mets are consistently inconsistent. I've said it, I feel like, every single time this season rather. But all right, Fuzzy, before we let you go, we're going to do a quick jump to a sponsor that you know very well, a good friend of ours on the channel, and that is going to be our great friends at SoRare MLB. In case you guys and gals do not know SoRare MLB, SoRare is the best MLB fantasy game out there, and in simple terms, to break it down for you all that maybe aren't aware on what SoRare MLB is, it is like combining, again, MLB The Show, if you love being your own GM, building your own roster, and combine that with actual MLB fantasy that you can play with your friends or random people online. And it shares share some context here about Solar MLB, everybody. Again, you can buy, sell, trade virtual cards that you, of course, can collect. And again, sell for real dollars on demand should you wish, depending on the grade and the rating of your card. You enter weekly tournaments by building your roster with these cards, and how you perform in said tournaments is based indicative on how these guys do in real life. So I hope for your sake you did not have Mr. Brett Batty, right? So far this series, the way that I've had him on my team, funny enough. And as I'm going to show you guys in a second how you can draft your team and enter today for free by clicking my unique link in the description down below and signing up today. It's so easy to do so, everybody, with our great friends there. And if you do well in these tournaments, rank in the certain hundreds or whatever it may be out of how many thousands, you win cash prizes, upgraded cards to make your team better than what it currently is, winning free Mets tickets, in which we gave away a bunch on the channel the past couple of weeks, all for just signing up to Solar MLB and joining a free tournament by drafting your team. It is so easy to work with, and it's so much fun to play with your friends, especially as I'm going to show you guys right now. We are going to enter a tournament together and have a lot of fun with this. So as I am building my tournament roster now, folks, just to give you guys some context, I'm actually going to pull back. We're going to do, let's do the limited monthly chase here. This is going to be a fun one. So for the limited monthly chase, the current players I have available for you are pitching wise, I got Logan Gilbert, I got Justin Verlander, George Kirby, and Dean Kremer. I am actually going to go with my man George Kirby for starter number 1. Any pitcher in Seattle is a good one for the most part. I would even love if I had Wu and Castillo on my team, but I don't. I'm going to go with Tanner Scott there as the reliever. Yainer Cano is a great option too, but I'm going to go with Tanner if he's going to get a good amount of playing time. Then we're going to go in the hot corner, Alex Bregman, who's trying to actually get a bag this offseason. Has been very inconsistent this year, but he's been picking it up lately. Adley Rutschman we're going to have there in the other spot. We're going to get, let's see here, we're going to go a lot of options here. I'm going to go with my man Josh Lowe, if he's available for the Rays. Let's see about that. Or Brian Reynolds. I'm actually going to go with Brian Reynolds. Let's see what Brian Reynolds can give me. Then we're going to go with Cal Riley. Actually, no, not Cal Riley. I'm sorry, Cal. I know that the Rangers have not been playing great, but I am a mofo for me to get some Jonah Heim action going. Love me some Jonah Heim. And then we're going to put in Logan Gilbert as the final pick, guys. That is my roster for our latest tournament. Again, guys, tournaments you can enter weekly, multiple times a week, at least on Mondays and Fridays. And then you have also, again, the limited monthly chase tournaments like we're doing right here that you can enter as well. So make sure to check them out, guys. And once more, shout out to our great friends at So Rare MLB. But now let's hop back into this one and chop it up with my man. On my end. So, all right, Fuzzy, final remarks before we get out of here. What is your prediction for tomorrow's game, and what should Mets fans expect from Mr. Tristan McKenzie?
Tristan's having a weird start. He was awful in terms of walks to begin the season, so I'm just hoping that there's no walks. I love my Guardians, and I think that we've had a fantastic season. I'm waiting for the inevitable slump, and I'm hoping that it doesn't come tomorrow. I'm going to say we win 4-3. I think it's going to be 4-3, and I think that Tyler Freeman is the player of the game tomorrow.
Okay, Tyler Freeman's player of the game, and we're going to lose 4-3. Jose Quintana can be very Jekyll and Hyde, but Quintana at his best will give us 5 to 6 innings of 2 earned run ball with probably 2 to 3 walks. If we get the walk rate down, that's great. I don't know how this Cleveland team handles lefty pitching. Is there anything you can add on that? Fantastic. Okay, so we're cooked because he's a soft tossing lefty that needs pinpoint accuracy to have a competent outing. Okay,
that's why we called him Jonathan Rodriguez.
Okay, Jonathan Rodriguez. Gotcha. So when you tell me that, I'm not feeling all that great about the final game of the series. So I'm going to go with you. I say the Mets get swept, and I think that this is another big reality check for them. They fall 7 games below 500, their worst stretch of the season thus far. And I do think that after this Cleveland series, we do continue to see some changes be made. One thing we've noticed a lot with David Stearns, he's been heavily aggressive on moving up our starting pitching prospects in the minor leagues. So Christian Scott, who's now made 3 starts for us, who's been awesome. He got barreled hard his last start because he just attacks the zone heavily. He also reminds me quite a bit of Max Scherzer when he goes from his fastball setting 95, touching 97, 98 at times, with also having a sweeping slider. Like, there are some parallels there. But Christian Scott, you know, when he's not right,
he's pitching tomorrow.
He's not pitching tomorrow. No. We have Jose Quintana. I wish Scott was pitching tomorrow, so it'd be an entertaining game.
He's nasty.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be lopsided. But The same way that I think for the Mets here, unfortunately, they're going to want to make more moves. And Blade Tidwell, who's one of our top pitching prospects, just got moved up to AAA a day or two ago. He has a 2.4 ERA and AA, 44 strikeouts. Braves fans wanted him really bad because I'm pretty sure he went to 10. I think he was a Vol, if I'm not mistaken. So, he's from that area as well. But we're excited to see Blade Tidwell. We have Brandon Sproat, who's a big pitching prospect, who's doing great. We also have our own Shohei Ohtani. I'm not sure if you know him. His name's Nolan McLean. He absolutely rakes, and he pitches a 2.5 ERA. Was just moved up to AA this past day or two, and he's been raking so far in the minor leagues. So we have options there that we're excited to get to at some point this season, especially a Mike Vassell if he's right, or again a Blade Tidwell. But for the time being, I think we're going to see, unfortunately, a Jose Quintana get absolutely worked tomorrow against a Guardians team that knows how to put the ball in play a lot. And the final thing I got for you is what's been going on with Steven Kwan. I have no clue what his status has been. The same way I want to know your thoughts before we get out of here on Mr. Andres Gimenez. Can you share them with us?
Yeah. So Kwan, he's had hamstring issues since high school. He said he had like 4 hamstring pulls in high school, 3 hamstring pulls in college. So he had a hamstring strain, but he's been running the bases. So he should be back in the next week. So that's why Freeman's the leadoff spot. Andres Gimenez, he was awful last year. He was one of those guys where his OPS plus his first year with us in 2022 was inflated because he crowds the plate so much. I think he was hit by a pitch 25, 30 times.
Oh,
so regression was coming.
Or Brandon Nimmo.
Pretty much, yeah. Just without the pop. But this seems to be the year where he's taking advantage of pitches inside the zone. We got the platinum defense. The runners in scoring position. His batting average with runners in scoring position is almost 500. And I'm talking about
you hear that,
70 plated innings. It's insane. He has basically been Babe Ruth when runners have been in scoring position. So that's what I'm talking about, plug and play and knowing your role. Don't try and be a Pete Alonso. Don't try and be the $300 million man. Just be you. Drive in that run when you're supposed to. And that's what Andres does, and he makes the plays that you're supposed to. I'm in love. I'm so – like, if we were going to trade Lindor to anyone, I'm happy that he's with you guys because you guys are mean to him, but you hold him accountable. And I think that he plays up to your standards for the most part. Trust me, it's coming. And then I think that Andres –
tell that to the rest of the fan base, please.
I know he went 2 for 5 or something like that, so maybe he's back to 200. I have no idea. But I think in my humble little fuzzy opinion, I don't know where you guys are at, but I think it's a win-win trade. That's my final synopsis of it. I think that we're going to be fine going forward. He's cheap. He does everything that Lindor can do, just without the 30 home run pop. So,
right. Yeah, no, and you're right. And for us Mets fans, we would love that kind of consistent production, especially hitting. And have a great night, Rose. Thank you so much for chiming in. We appreciate that. But the thing about Andres Gimenez, when the Mets first called him up, I was in love too, because he showed those flashes of brilliance right away, whether it was the 2020 shortened season, right, before we then acquired him that next offseason. And Gimenez, we saw him break out that first year. I saw you,
he was insane,
posting those tweets comparing the two, especially Lindor's really rough start.
I do that just to troll. I'm not even serious.
I know you do, but that's the whole point though, because we know these things are going to get traction. And it's going to piss off fan bases. It's good. But I think Gimenez, for the big thing, it's not only the great defense, but he feels like a guy that thrives in, again, a Cleveland atmosphere. Like, he fits your philosophy really well. So for the fans that are going to go out of their way to say, I wish we never trade Andres Gimenez and stuff like that, I tend to disagree, because I think that with the way that the Mets have struggled mightily in recent years to have proper player development, what is there to make me think that Andres Gimenez is going to thrive the way he's been in Cleveland now here in Queens? I just don't see that happening. And it's a Francisco Lindor type player to still get out of the ruts that he puts himself in at the end of the day, the way that I don't have faith in certain other guys, because again, they haven't been here, done that as long. And again, Francisco Lindor, when right, is the best shortstop in the National League, not named Mr. Mookie Betts or Trey Turner, when they're going right. So I think Lindor, again, we will certainly still see the best of him this season, but at this rate now, 6 games below 500, I know we got a 162, but to feed into the Mets fans saying, oh, the season's cooked already, it might be by time it's a little too late. So we'll find out on that front in the case of Lindor and this Mets team. But everybody, we're past an hour. That's going to do it. The Mets lost. Why are we still talking? Fuzzy, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it. You made this an awesome discussion. And again, the Mets are going to lose. At least we can have awesome collabs like this. So make sure to let everyone know where they can find you, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
Hey, I appreciate your hard work, man. I tune into some streams. I don't say anything sometimes, but you're really good at what you do, and you're a great host, and you have a great community going on. And thank you guys for allowing me to talk some ball. Again, Fuzzy, just search Fuzzy Recap or something like that. I post MLB The Show on Fuzzy Gaming. So if you guys like that sort of thing, don't feel obliged. But thank you guys for all the donations today from my man Wardy, the 50 bomb and stuff like that. You guys crushed it. And thank you for everything.
Awesome. Yeah, appreciate you, Fuzzy. Thank you guys all for the donations, the likes, the subscriptions, everything in between. We will more than likely be back live tomorrow. I got a Bleacher Report segment for you guys, a big one at around noon or so. So be on the lookout there in the Bleacher Report app. Then hopefully afterwards, we'll have our post-game segment as we talk about the Mets being swept. So until then, have a great rest of your night, day, evening, and whenever you're watching this, everybody.